Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can also find our Overflow channel wherever you get your podcast. Just search Packer Fan Total Access. It is February 19th. We got several topics to dive into as we are inching closer to free agency and, of course, the NFL draft. We should have contract restructures any day now. We've been mentioning it every day that, hey, this could come down the pike. I know, I believe it was Patrick Mahomes just had his contract restructured. He went from his cap hit being like $70-something million. Everybody's going, what are they going to do? They just freed up about $40 million in cap space with the swoop of a pen. So they are back in business over there. And I'm just wondering, what are the Packers going to do? Are we just going to kind of ride this thing out to a certain extent and focus on re-signing our own players, or are we going to dive into free agency a bit? And I think the best way to kind of have a conversation about the whole situation there with the roster is this roster elite? Is it elite when everybody's healthy? Is it great? Is it very good? Where would you rank it? So we're going to go through the offensive depth chart, the defensive depth chart, and special teams. Before we get into that, we got a real important topic is it just seems like every day I log on to X, I log on to social media, I'm seeing reports, I'm seeing videos, I'm seeing tweets, posts, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not talking about the clickbaity Facebook groups that are out there, but everybody in between, like, will Josh Jacobs be on this roster? It seems like a no-brainer to me. We're going to break down why they're saying that and how much money can be saved with the post-June 1 cut. And I want to get the chat's take on that and see how they feel. Because I kind of feel like, Jacob, that Josh Jacobs is one of those guys that's uncuttable. We're going to dive into it. I'm definitely going to get your take on it. It just seems like more people than not they keep bringing that to the surface. And then we're going to end the show with a little drama. I know Jacob likes drama, right? We got the feud between Micah Parsons, and you're going, oh, what player is this? Is it a coach? Is it a player on the Packers? Is it who? Skip Bayless. All right, so Skip Bayless is challenging Micah Parsons, and I'm telling you, man, listening to that whole video, yeah, it's a guy that, boy, is he just trying to cling on to anything he possibly can to stay relevant. And it's embarrassing, but at the same time, it's entertaining, right? It's funny to watch somebody kind of – you talk about a narcissist. Anyway, we'll get into it. We'll end the show with that. It's going to be a lot of fun, I believe. So I'm definitely eager to see what everybody thinks about that. But before we get into all the topics, if y'all would, do that YouTube stuff for me. Hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome into PTA. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We are not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you talking Packers on a daily basis. So looking for that type of content, hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you catch it every time we do go live. Jacob, how you doing, Bubba? What's going on up in your neck of the woods? How much snow did you end up with? I think is a better question.
It wasn't too much, just a couple inches. Definitely, the winter's not over yet. It kind of messed with us for a few days, gave us some like 50-degree weather, melted everything away, and then just slapped us in the face last night to make sure we didn't forget the winter is still here. But no, man, feeling good, ready to talk some ball. How about you?
Yeah, doing great, man. Doing great. Ready to dive into it. I know we got Chris in the house. We got Memphis Magic, the barber. The Boz is in here. Holmes is in the house. Appreciate y'all swinging through. Smash that like button on your way in. And StreamYard is having problems streaming this on X, so we haven't been on Twitter the last few days. Don't know what's going on there. I've detached the Twitter account a couple times and then reattached it. They said that might fix it, but I'm getting a notification right now that they're still having problems. So hopefully they'll get that straightened out here soon. So, again, let's get into it, man. First topic here. And this one makes me a little nervous because I think Josh Jacobs is – I don't know how you feel. Let me just start the conversation with that, Jacob. Where would you rank Josh Jacobs in terms of, if you were to say, okay, these are the top 5 players on the Packers roster, would you put him in the top 5, right? And 2, would you, where would you rank him, officially? Would it be 5? Would it be 3? Would it be 1? I don't know. How important do you think Josh Jacobs is to this team? Because I see him toward the top of the list, man.
Yeah, he'd definitely be in my top 5. As far as where he would rank, that would be something I'd probably have to think a little bit more about. But, I mean, he does seemingly have that kind of leadership presence on the team. Even though he hasn't been here the longest, he kind of, that him and Tuck both seem to kind of have that heart and soul of the offense kind of feel to him. I know he's a highly respected guy inside the locker room and out at the facility. I think it's just that maybe because of the fact of the position, because I think we've gotten so used to running backs being kind of interchangeable. You can kind of get them off the scrap heap. You can find UDFAs. You can find them mid-season. And it seems like anytime that there's a running back even starting to flirt with that 30 age mark, it kind of just you start freaking out a little bit. And then you look at how much you're paying them on the bottom line. I'm seeing some comments. I think J. Cole was talking about how, right there, saying that I'll say this: Packers were interested in Breece Hall in the past. If he's a free agent this year, can I see the Packers cutting Jacobs for Hall? Yes, I can. Do I want that to happen? No. I don't know. I just feel like that they already maybe feel like they have too much money tied up in the running back position room and looking for a way to get cheaper that way. But I don't know. I think he's a great asset to the team. It wouldn't completely shock me if they did make a move to either free up some more cap room or to outright get rid of him.
Holmes in the chat said they would be crazy to let him go this season and even next, in my opinion. I agree with that. Mike Z says, good morning. Please tell me this is not a real thing, for real. So let's get into it. Let's talk about, and when you guys know how I roll with this, I see multiple reports here and there. I go, hey, let's try to compile a bunch of information together. What's the general consensus on why these rumors keep popping up week after week that Josh Jacobs might be a cap casualty? So here are the details. It says rumors regarding Josh Jacobs being a potential cap casualty for the Packers have intensified this week, largely sparked by reports from Ian Hartitz of Fantasy Life and subsequent analysis of the Packers' precarious 2026 cap situation. While Jacobs has been productive, the, quote, business of football, specifically a ballooning cap hit and a roster currently in the red, has placed him on the radar for a potential release or restructure. Now, depending on which site you look at, we're actually closer to break even than this number is showing. But again, this is what the report kind of popped out there. All right. It says the primary driver of these rumors is the structure of the 4-year, $48 million contract Jacobs signed in 2024. The deal was essentially designed as a series of 1-year options, and 2026 is the year where the savings for Green Bay becomes significant. All right, so category 2026 projection cap hit of $14.5 million with a base salary of $10.2 million. You got a dead cap pre-June 1 of $6.2, but post-June 1, it's only $3.1 million in cap. So you got potential savings of somewhere between $8.2 and $11 million in cap space, right? Now, here's why the rumors are surfacing. The Packers being in the red as of mid-February 2026, the Packers are projected to be roughly $16.9 million over the cap. Of course, like I said, you're closer to break even than that number. You guys do your own research. There's a multitude of sites you can go comb through, and none of them have the same number, which is absolutely hilarious to me. So with massive extensions for Jordan Love and Micah Parsons on the books, Brian Gutekunst must find ways to swing the axe to get under the limit. Lack of guaranteed money. Jacobs has no remaining fully guaranteed money for the final 2 years of his contract. This makes him one of the most liquid assets of the team. Needs to create double-digit millions in space quickly. Efficiency regression. While Jacobs totaled 2,882 yards and 30 touchdowns over his 2 seasons in Green Bay, which, by the way, guys, are those not good numbers? If you're talking about 1,400 yards per season, if those numbers are accurate right there, right? I mean, in Green Bay, his 4 yards per carry in 2025 and low rankings in rushing yards over expected, which was 37th in the league. The year before, it was through the roof, right? Have led some analysis to question if his production justifies a top 5 running back salary. Now, I will, if we were to play devil's advocate for a second, Jacob, the knee injury, the last 6 weeks of the season, that's a real thing, right? Now, we would like to think it's healthy, it's good to go, and it was kind of a freak thing where he landed on it perfectly in that concrete surface they play at that garbage of a stadium up there where the Jets and the Giants play. It's just amazing that one of the largest cities in the world or surrounding areas of one of the largest cities in the world can't come up with a safer surface, and it's just notorious across the league that, man, that thing is harder than concrete when you hit that turf. It's just wild to think about. So that's what happened with the knee. Everything I've seen, they fully expect him to be good to go. There's not going to be any lingering effects. But again, like you said, you're kind of approaching, you're getting closer to that 30-year range. Things tend to happen more often than not in that regard, man. Now, the big thing, Jacob, now I want to get your take. The Goot factor, history repeating, right? During the February 4th press conference, Brian Gutekunst stated that Jacobs is, quote, really important part of our football team and that he expects him back. However, Packer fans and insiders are wary of this vote of confidence for 2 reasons. remember when Goody talked about Aaron Jones in the same light. Like it was just, maybe days, weeks before it was like, oh yeah. I mean, actually, I think it mentions it right here, the Aaron Jones precedent, right? In 2024, Goody called Aaron Jones the quote heartbeat of the team just weeks before asking him to take a 50% pay cut and eventually releasing him to sign Jacobs. Oh, that's a dirty business. The pay cut ultimatum. It is widely speculated that the Packers will approach Jacobs with a restructure or a pay cut request. All right. If he declines, a post June 1 release would save the team over $11.4 million in cap space, which could be used to address the defensive line or cornerback depth. But again, man, it's like the old Three Stooges skit there. Remember when they had a hole in the boat and it's leaking water? And they're trying to get the water, so they drill another hole to let that water out, and then more. It's like, how many times are we going to do this? We're just kind of shuffling chairs on the Titanic deck, right? Is what we're doing essentially. Like, why not give them a little bit more guaranteed money, restructure it in a way that it saves you cap, i.e., cash over cap, keep Jacobs on the roster, and now you feel even better about the running back room, because if you do move on from Josh Jacobs, you've only got two options. You either roll with what you got, or you got to go spend money in free agency for another running back, right? So I don't know, man. What's your take on this? What would you do knowing now the number post June 1 is 8.4 or roughly $8 million pre June 1? Would you rather have that cap space, or would you rather have Josh Jacobs on your team?
Man, it's a little more of a question than I want to admit, because when I first started hearing these rumors, I thought, I could not see that happening. But if you calculate all the different things, like you talked about, the contract, the age, the injury, whether or not this is a key tier 1 position of importance on the team, if it's easy to get guys, I shouldn't say easy, because it's not easy to ever replace a guy like, Josh Jacobs. But, like Memphis, the Magic Barber says, I'd rather cut Keyshawn, Gary, whoever over Jacobs. I think that that's fair as well. I think that it'd be nice to go and try to get some sort of, if it's a restructure, team friendly, whatever the case may be. I think we definitely need to go down that avenue and try it. But do I think we're a better team without Josh Jacobs? Breece Hall, I've never had much of a high hopes for him, but I don't know. It's going to be tough to convince me that we're a better team without Josh Jacobs. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and that's what J. Cole talks about here, is Breece Hall is also 25 years old. I don't think Breece Hall is a bad football player, but when you stack the two up together, I'm not sitting there going, oh yeah, Breece Hall over Josh Jacobs. Not that Jay is either, but it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like I just don't understand what we're doing. It just feels like every year we do something else where it's like, you make a move and you go trade for Micah Parsons and you go all in, right? But then you go and you sign Aaron Banks, and when he signed him at the time, we're going, man, you notice he wasn't on our cheat sheet last year. We didn't think he was going to be a difference maker. And, of course, they sign him, and you try to be optimistic and go, okay, maybe Goody knows what he's doing here. We went and got Aaron Banks. Same thing with Nate Hobbs. It's like, okay, maybe they've seen something. He is kind of aggressive. We want to be a little more aggressive on defense, right? Neither of those worked out. So here we are again 1 year later going, man, if this really happens and they move on from Josh Jacobs because he's not willing to take a pay cut, and might I add, why should Josh Jacobs take a pay cut? I don't look at his cap hit and go, whoa, that's too much. Not for somebody who's got the kind of numbers he's put up in the you know how many times he's hit pay dirt for us? Like, and again, touchdowns can be a misleading stat. I get that, but it is the most important stat, is how many points you score and how many points you allow, right? So I don't know, man. When you look at the cap hit this year, 14.5, next year 16.6, I'm not saying we should keep him at that cap hit. You should definitely lower that down. But the thought of just moving on without him and eating $6.2 million in dead cap if you do pre-June 1, I really don't like that idea, man, for sure. So one of the other things it pulled here is it says potential landing spots. If the rumors materialize and Jacobs is released, early reports suggest several teams with high cap space would be immediate suitors. Tennessee Titans currently lead the NFL with over $100 million in cap space. Pittsburgh Steelers looking for a downhill runner to pair with Jaylen Warren. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, always a threat for veteran ring chasers, especially with Isaiah Pacheco hitting free agency. I looked at Isaiah Pacheco. According to Spot Track, his fair market value or projected market value is like $4.5 million. So he must have had a down year. Maybe he's coming off injuries. I don't know. But you guys,
he's always coming off injury.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Got it. So again, if the Packers were to move on from Josh Jacobs, he is going to have multiple suitors right out of the gate. Promise you that. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't think it'll happen. But again, I've been ignoring this topic for a while now, and I kind of rolled my eyes, and I keep seeing more and more videos, more and more posts coming up. It's like, okay, maybe there's a little smoke to this fire, so I thought we would cover it. Now you know the pros and cons of keeping Josh Jacobs, and I'm curious to know if you guys are watching this back later. Let us know in the comments, how do you feel about the Josh Jacobs situation? Do you want him on your roster moving forward, or would you rather cut him and free up that extra cap space? So let us know in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click that bell icon for us too. All right, Jacob, let's move along now to a little depth chart talk. Is there any other comments we want to hit in here in the chat that maybe might have mentioned that you see? Anything at all?
No, I think we're pretty caught up.
All right, good deal. Good deal. So let's move along now to this this depth chart talk. Sometimes we get comments where people are saying you're being too critical of Goody, you're being too critical of the roster. Other times that you guys are, you're just cup half full, sunshine and rainbows, all that stuff, right? Constantly. So I think the truth, we try to have the truth lie somewhere in the middle. But I wanted to ask a question. Do you guys think this roster is elite if everybody's healthy? And again, I know that's a hard thing to do in the National Football League. It's hard to go through a full season and stay, nobody expects you to stay 100% healthy, but stay healthy to the point where it's like, wow, we stayed healthier than every other team, therefore we had the best shot to win the whole thing. How do we see this roster if everyone is healthy? Because again, we're running everything through the filter of how the season ended, where we had, 17 players on IR and a ton of starters and very, very important players. So I figured we would dive into everything. How would you rank the roster if everybody's healthy? Before we look at the depth chart in general, I want to get your take on it right out of the gate. Would you say it's elite? Would you say it's great? Would you say it's very good or good? Because I don't think it's anything below good, right?
I think that I would consider it great, minus maybe two major position groups.
Okay. So you're just two positions away from saying, hey, this could be an elite roster.
I think O-line and D-line are the thing that's holding us back.
Got it. Makes sense. It makes sense. Let me hit the super chat real quick. Mike Z, thank you so much. But he says, did we not release Aaron only to have him sign for the same money? We don't win at least 3 games. And who is his replacement and at what price? It's madness talking about the Josh Jacobs situation. And, you can kind of see it right here on the depth chart as we dive in at the running back position. I mean, you'll notice here too, the ones that are lit up in the bold black there, guys, that means they are restricted free agents. So another team can come in and get them if they want, right? But you've got to essentially, if you want them, you've got to hit them with a certain amount of an offer, which is now going to place value on that player, that if another team comes in and outbids you, they have to give up a pick that corresponds with the money they're willing to spend to outbid you, is the layman's way of saying it, right? So when he's talking about this whole thing with the running back position with Aaron, yes, Aaron Jones, it was $1 million difference is what it was. Basically, Minnesota paid Aaron Jones $1 million more was the last I heard reported on it. And that's what got it over the hump. Now, people said, well, Aaron should have stayed for that, but he had already taken a huge pay cut. It wasn't just like, oh, they asked him to take a $1 million pay cut. It was, here's the number we got you at, right? And then it's, okay, let's lower it down even more. And, of course, the Vikings said, oh, yeah, we'll give you that. Because they cut him, and there was rumors they were going to bring him back, if I remember correctly. So it's a little bit deeper than just, what appears there on the surface. But at the same time, it's a perfect example of $1 million, Jacob. $1 million. And you could have had Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs. And guess what? Yeah, $1 million. By the way, if you look at it that way too, we had to really press into duo. We had to really press into some of the gap stuff and the inside zone a little bit more. If you keep Aaron Jones, you can keep that aspect of the outside zone running game, and that would have really been a nice change up against defenses. But again, man, it was Brian Gutekunst said it wasn't that important. Is essentially what it comes down to. So anyway, looking at the offensive depth chart here, let's just kind of start at the quarterback position. Jordan Love, of course, Malik Willis. If they're lit up green, that means they're unrestricted free agents. Okay, so the guys in the green, expect them gone unless the Packers are willing to pay market value. Just run it through that filter. Okay, Jordan Love, Desmond Ridder is essentially your quarterback because Malik Willis is hitting free agency and probably going to get a good chunk of change. Okay. When you move on to running back, which we were just talking about, you got Josh Jacobs, then you got Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks, which are both restricted free agents. Then you got Marshawn Lloyd. And it's wild that Marshawn Lloyd was he a second or a third round pick? He's a third round pick, right? Am I thinking right, Jacob?
It's a third, yeah.
Yeah. So Marshawn Lloyd being a third round pick, yeah, there it is right there, 24-3. So he was a third round pick in the 2024 draft, and he's fourth on your depth chart. I mean, why is that? Because he can't stay healthy. Why did we struggle last year? Because we couldn't stay healthy. And here you've got Josh Jacobs, who battled his ass off through a swollen knee week in and week out, and we're potentially talking about letting him go. You understand what I'm saying? It's like this whole idea, I'm going to just start calling it a conspiracy theory that you got to get younger to stay healthy, because we have seen the opposite when it comes to that type of results, I guess you could say. So what do you think about quarterback, running back here? Are you okay with Desmond Ridder? Or do you agree with me that we should probably take a swing in the 7th round on a quarterback or backup?
I think we should always take a swing. The best time to look for a quarterback is when you already have one. I think wasn't that kind of the Ron Wolf way of thinking? And that's why I've subtly mentioned that maybe we need a running back between the 5th and 7th round too. Just because if Emmanuel decides to take his talent somewhere else, if the Chris Brooks thing kind of falls through the cracks, even if it doesn't, and we obviously don't still know what we have in Lloyd in any kind of capacity for any amount of time, which is unfortunate because, the kid showed like he maybe had some pop, some razzle dazzle, something like that. But he just has not been able to be available. He can't make the club on the tub. So I'll tell you what, I was way more secure in our quarterback room this year and our running back room going into the year than I will be going into this next year. I'll say it that.
Yeah. Holmes MD1 says, I agree, Clay. I thought it was a poor decision on Jones. I know we got excited for like 30 seconds, Holmes, on this show. We were like, oh my God.
It was legit like 10 minutes. We were on cloud 9. And then
Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones on the same roster. Holy cow, we're about to run the rock. And Aaron Jones is gone. And he signed with the Vikings. Well, crap. Now, hindsight being 2020, did Aaron Jones dominate? He did not. But we know it would have been a different story in Green Bay with the system. He was already now there's similar systems with KOCs, but at the same time, he was already comfortable with what he was doing in Green Bay, right? So Chris Casuan says, I'd love to see Matt LaFleur partner with a real NFL GM. It seems like now that the dust has settled, there are more people that are kind of bleeding into the whole, is Goody actually the guy? It felt like Matt LaFleur took all that heat early, and I think people are realizing now that, hey, maybe this roster wasn't as fail safe as we thought it might be originally. Holmes makes a great point. If Lloyd is as advertised, the run game could be really, really good. It really could. I mean, he is a dynamic player. That wheel route that he got hurt on in the preseason, that was like, oh my God. If you've got a running back that can make that kind of play with that kind of burst and those kind of hands down the sideline and a tight window catch like that, that is a weapon. I mean, that is a weapon on offense. The problem is you got to stay on the field, man. Got to stay on the field. So when you look at this, I'm assuming that Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks will be back. They'll probably put a minimum tender on them and see if another team's willing to give up any kind of compensation or outbid them, But if you keep both those guys, the running back room, on one hand, you could say is set if Josh Jacobs is here too. However, if one or both of those guys leave the team, we're drafting a running back, Jacob. That's happening,
Yeah.
So exactly what you were talking about the other day when we were breaking down the draft. So it's going to be interesting to see how that falls into place. Tight end, Tucker Kraft. Then you got John Fitzpatrick. Obviously, he is an unrestricted free agent. He's going to get to test the market. Then you got Luke Musgrave and Josh Wiley. I'm not as concerned about tight end, to be honest with you. I think Josh Wiley impressed me. If he's healthy, I think that guy he's a difference maker on this team. I don't think he's great by no stretch of the imagination, but I would consider him above average to good. And what else can you expect from a tight end? You don't want to go 3 or 4 deep at tight end when you're still playing 11 personnel as much as you are. Luke Musgrave, it is what it is. He's a receiving tight end. When he's schemed open, I think he's got good hands. Now you can't expect any yak at all, right? You're being unrealistic if you're expecting yak yards after the catch. But I can also see a situation that if John Fitzpatrick leaves in free agency and he gets an offer somewhere, and you go and get someone like Koziel out of Houston, right? Or someone like that would fall right in our lap. That could be an important aspect of the tight end position. So moving on to wide receiver, here's how the depth chart sits today. And again, this is before Romeo Doubs hits free agency, so there's going to be a void left here. They've got as and our lads does this a little bit different, okay? They're going to say left receiver, right receiver, slot receiver. If you guys watch this channel, we break down the tape pretty extensively. We talk all the time about, the X position, the Z position, the move Z, the F, which is the primary motion guy, right? Your F is essentially your slot, okay? That's Jayden Reed. And you're probably going, well, hold up a minute. I remember seeing Jayden Reed on the field, but Matthew Golden was the move guy, right? That's what we call the moving Z. And essentially, those two positions are interchangeable, right? You need players that can play. The F can be an outside receiver, and the Z can play the F or the slot. All right. And the reason we mention that is because there's going to be some situations where Jayden Reed is in the 2, right? So let's say you've got Matthew Golden in the 1, on the right. He's in the 1, and you've got Jayden Reed in the 2, which is technically the F, and then they cheat motion him outside, right, to get up the sideline. Well, guess what? Theoretically speaking, he's going to become the post-snap Z, even though he was the F. That's what we mean by those need to be 2 interchangeable positions. Romeo Doubs was your boundary X. When we say boundary, that's the short side of the field, okay? You'll hear field side and boundary. Boundary is short side of the field. Field side is the large side of the field, meaning you're on the left hash. It would be field side right, okay? So Romeo is in that phone booth in the boundary. I think personally that our boy Golden is going to take over that spot for our boy Romeo Doubs. Okay, so just keep that in mind right there. So they've got Matthew Golden listed as the backup left receiver behind Christian Watson, when essentially I think he's going to take Romeo Doubs' spot, which they've got listed as R. But again, that's going to be the boundary X position. So when you look at the receivers and the tight ends, Jacob, Tucker Kraft's your starting tight end. You're probably going to have Christian Watson on one side, Matthew Golden on the other, and Jayden Reed in the slot. Everybody seems to be healthy, good to go. We just got to get Tucker back, of course, from the ACL, and I think that will happen. All signs are pointing to that. How do you feel about the tight end and the wide receiver room with what we got in 11 personnel as it sits?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of our strongest 2 groups, if not our 2 strongest. Wide receiver room, even with a lot of the, like you said, the injuries on and off this last year. Even if we end up losing Dobby, I do think that's still the top 5 are going to be as good as any top 5 in this league. I'll go pound for pound for that. Tight end room, like you said, as soon as we get a good, healthy Tech Norris back, I think that he's a top 3, if not best tight end in the league. And if Musgraves even takes a small little step, if Wiley can get healthy and be kind of more of that traditional, more blocking, athletic type of tight end, and then like you said, if we get a Koziel, who's the guy from Tennessee, that like Kittleson or Kittle Middleton or something like that. He's another big guy from Tennessee, tight end.
You're talking about Kitzelman, Miles
Kitzelman. Yeah. So,
he's interesting, man, because some people got him as a late round prospect, and others are going, man, this might be one of the better blocking tight ends in the league.
Yeah. So, yeah, if we could address it and just kind of round out the room a little bit in the draft, I wouldn't be mad at that whatsoever. I wouldn't even be mad if they took like a late round receiver who maybe is more of a return man early in his career, if maybe that's his only role. So, but all in all, I think that those are one of our 2 strongest groups right there, both of those.
Yeah. J. Cole says, Goot, quote, "We got to start winning Super Bowls," end of quote. Proceeds to cut every player over 30 years old.
Yep.
It's frustrating. Mike Z says in the chat, do we think Wicks is a good option, Clayton? I think Wicks is a good option. I think he's one of the better backup receivers in the league. I wouldn't – now, he may get starting reps right out of the gate over Matthew Golden. If he does, people are going to march on 1265. I promise you that. Because, again – the thing about Dontavion Wicks, he's got good size. His hands have improved tremendously. And I know he had a couple drops last year, but his hands got a lot better last year. He's one of the best route running wide receivers in the league. So in the phone booth at the X position is where I think he would do his most damage. So maybe they slide Dontavion Wicks into Romeo Doubs' spot as he hits free agency. And now Matthew Golden, Jayden Reed, and Christian Watson are constantly rotating. It could be the case. I don't think Dontavion Wicks will get more snaps than those other 3 guys. But Dontavion Wicks has played the F as well. Although, when people were complaining last year because Bo Melton got so many snaps, the reality is the reason he got so many snaps is because Jayden Reed was out and he was the one who knew the offense the most to come in and play the F spot. Because with the F position, guys, there's choice routes all over this offense for Matt LaFleur. Meaning, if the defense does this, I'm actually going to break the route off at 6 yards as opposed to 8 yards, or I'm going to run a post instead of a dig. Like, there's choice aspects. Matthew Golden didn't catch on to that stuff quick enough last year. Okay, that's why it looked like, wow, we're underutilizing him. Well, he's running the wrong routes. He's running them at the wrong depth. He's not breaking that choice route off in the right spot. They couldn't get on the same page. We used to rake Aaron Rodgers' ass over the coals for that, going, well, he's being too picky. He's being too picky. No. That's the details that go into NFL level offense. It's just a reality of the NFL and what's going on today. Like, why did Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce have so much success? Because they were completely on the same page, and 95% of the routes that Kelce ran were choice routes. He'd just go out there and read the DB, and Pat Mahomes knew exactly what he was going to do based off of the depth in which that DB was playing. Was he playing outside leverage or inside leverage? All those things, right? So not to geek out too much over the X's and O's and everything, but that's why Bo Melton was thrust in, because they knew he would run the right route. The problem is he was dropping passes because he's there's a reason they try to play him at cornerback, right? He's not a great receiver. He's not a great cornerback. He's just kind of a tweener with everything. And it's a valuable piece, and he's a great special teams player. Or is he? Because everybody hated special teams, right? He's supposedly our best special teams player, but we thought the special teams were cheap. So how great is he? You know what I mean? All these questions come into factor when it comes to the wide receiver room. But I think Wicks is a good option, Mike. I would just consider him the fourth best receiver on this team. And I want those three out there, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden. I want them on the field the large majority of the time. That's kind of the way I see that. So moving on to offensive line, I know people in the chat were talking about that, it doesn't matter what, the wide receivers do and this and that and what the running backs do if the offensive line is going to be cheeks. Right now, as it sits today, left tackle, Rasheed Walker is set to hit free agency, okay? They've got Aaron Banks at left guard still, Elton Jenkins at center. Sean Ryan is set to hit free agency. They had him listed as the starting right guard, although Anthony Belton kind of took that role over last year, whether you think he played horrible like PFF said, or you think he played better like others that watched the tape thought he played a little bit better than what PFF gave him credit for. He will probably be your starting right guard. Zach Tom is your right tackle. Jordan Morgan, I think, will slide right into that left tackle spot and take over for Rasheed Walker, although our lads has Darian Kennard as the backup left tackle. So obviously that's a little off, in my opinion. So again, your offensive line, Jacob, as it sits today on February 19th, is going to be Jordan Morgan left tackle, Aaron Banks left guard, Elton Jenkins center, Anthony Belton right guard, and Zach Tom right tackle. I don't feel great about that offensive line.
Nope, I do not either. I think that's our most glaring position group that we need to work on. And that's why, a lot of people have maybe gotten frustrated with certain draft picks that we've done in the mocks, or maybe the certain ways that we've tried to highlight the offseason for free agency. I think you'll have to see why there. I mean, you could argue that obviously I don't expect us to have Walker back. I would argue that it would be nice if we could cut Banks, free up some cap room and, kind of wash that away. We could argue that Elton may not be on this team and Sean Ryan couldn't be on the team. That's 4 out of the 5 positions that you have to at least replace with people that either haven't played that position lately or it's not their preferred spot. So, yeah, in a perfect world, we go out and we get a Linderbaum in free agency, and then we draft a Jennings Dunker, and then we get like a Logan Jones or something like that, Bo Stevens, somebody like that. Just, the odds of that happening are about as good as me strapping up and being drafted by the Packers myself. So I just don't see that happening. So we got to do a lot of work in the offseason to just make this front 5 be formidable to even get us through the beginning of the year, let alone, catapult us into maybe what should be a playoff run, a window of maybe 2 to 3 years, where if we can't get our offensive line stapled down and have the foundation of our team, that window is going to close pretty quickly, and it's going to make a lot of people very upset. I know that.
Yeah, and listen, it's hard to defend how the offensive line is built. When you look back on how we approached it last year, we said it was a top priority. Goody agreed, and we know that because he went out and spent a ton of money on Aaron Banks at left guard, and he spent a second-round pick on Anthony Belton, which we've shown time and time again was one hell of a reach according to our PTA big board. We had him in the 120 spot, and Goody took him in the second round. He passed over Ozzie Trapillo, who ended up, I think he was 76 on our board, if I remember correctly, And he ended up being a great football player, one of the highest graded rookie offensive linemen in the entire National Football League for the Chicago Bears. You literally said, nope, we want Belton over Trapillo. And then you also said you want Golden over Burden, and Burden had a better year. Doesn't mean that either of those players aren't going to be great, but it's just a tough look, man, because now you're looking up going, Goody took his swing. He took 2 swings. He said, I'm going to sure this thing up right now. I'm going to go get Aaron Banks, swing and a miss. I'm going to go get Anthony Belton, at least for the time being, swing and a miss. So only time will tell if it actually works out. But if you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about the offensive depth chart? Is there something we missed there? Maybe you feel good about the offensive line, man. We can agree to disagree. Let us know in the comments. What do you think's the biggest need? What do you think's the biggest strength? Also, let us know how you feel about Josh Jacobs, like that previous segment. I'm curious to know if people would rather just move on from him or if they want to keep him on the roster. It's definitely a keep for me, but we want to hear from you guys. Make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, click the bell icon as well. All right, Jacob, let's move along to defense. Defensive side of the ball. No Jeff Hafley, right? No Jeff Hafley. What's this defense going to do with Jonathan Gannon? What pieces do we have in place? Let's start in the interior. At defensive tackle, as it sits right now, like I said, on February 19th, defensive tackle position is they're showing Carl Brooks above Kobe Wooden. Kobe Wooden is actually the nose tackle. So I would list it Kobe Wooden at nose tackle, Devontae Wyatt at 3 tech. Those are your interior defensive tackles when it comes to your nickel defense, okay? Behind them, you've got Carl Brooks. You've got Warren Brinson. You've got they're showing Jordan Riley still on there. And, of course, Nas Stackhouse, they've got buried on the depth chart. That's kind of your backup nose, if you will. Although Carl Brooks, his first year in the league, played a lot more nose than he did since then. Of course, we were running a 34 at the time. We're going to go to more of a multiple front now, which is closer to a 34 than Jeff Hafley's base 4-3 front. We'll see how all that shakes out. But when it comes to defensive tackle, you look at the 2 starters, Devontae Wyatt at 3 tech, great pass rusher. I wouldn't say great pass rusher. Would I say great pass rusher, Jacob? Or would you say – I would say very good pass rusher instead of great. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good pass rusher. Probably average to below average run defender. I would say below average run defender, just based off of what we've seen there with Wyatt. Kobe Wooden impressed me last year. But again, he's only impressing me because of where he was drafted, right? And my expectations were extremely low for Kobe Wooden. I thought he might get cut coming out of camp, to be honest with you. But he ended up being our nose tackle last year with Kendy Clark going to Dallas. So with the interior, that's how it sits. How do you feel about the interior defensive tackle position?
I think we could definitely use some work there. Devontae Wyatt, like you said, we've talked about up and down. Sometimes we'll see flashes of what looks like an absolute stud, and then he just kind of goes quiet for a little too long, in my opinion. The Carl Brooks and Kobe Wooden, I think they've done about as much as we could have asked them for where we got them in the draft and kind of what we expected them to do. It'd be nice to see them both take a little bit of a progression or some progress, but we've gotten some unbelievable finishes out of them, blocked kicks, great sacks, flashy type plays. And, as far as what we've asked them to do, again, I think that they've kind of answered that bill. I just think that after that is when we really start to get a little iffy. We don't feel like we've got that big true nose anymore, other than maybe Nas Stackhouse. But again, he's so young, him and Brinson, a couple of guys that I almost feel like that's Kobe and Brooks 2.0. Just guys that kind of came in together, attached at the hip, going to be considered kind of the same draft class for the rest of their career. I just feel like that if there was a position where we could just plug in an old school veteran that could hopefully help us out here, this is where if we could find one. I know we've done that exercise multiple times and they're not just hanging from the trees, but I would hope that we could find somebody we could plug in there.
Yeah, and Chris N says 400 snaps a year, Clayton. I'm assuming he's talking about Devontae Wyatt. I asked him in the chat who he was talking about. I think that's who he's talking about. That's the big knock with Devontae Wyatt is like, how can you, okay, he confirmed. How can you say, all right, he's the 3 tech of the future when we're only getting 400 snaps out of him? You know what I mean? It's just it's a tough sell. It is. And then you see the lack of gap discipline in the run fit and things like that. It's like, again, I don't think he's a bad player, and I'd say Chris agrees, but the combination of, okay, he's not a well-rounded defensive tackle for somebody you spent a first-round pick on, and now he's going to be $12 million against the cap this year and potentially $20 million per if you decide to bring him back. That's just a tough sell for me, man. It really is. It's a real tough sell. So defensive tackle, definitely a position you got to show some attention to. And again, if you go into free agency, I mean, we just talked about we might be cutting Josh Jacobs to try to clean up a little bit of cap space because that, not that we would, but that might be how the team's looking at this based off the rumors that are circulating out there. If that's the case, then how in the world are we going to go get a defensive tackle? If that's our mindset, that, well, no, we got to make sure we got enough cap space. We can't even keep Josh Jacobs. How in the world are you going to make a case to go out and try to get somebody like a Logan Hall or a Calais Campbell or a Onyemata? You know, that's the tough part for me. And again, it's early and there's a lot of rumors out there, and Lord knows it's lion season. When you get into draft season, it becomes lion season. Everybody's putting false reports out, this and that, but just trying to keep our finger on the pulse. It's something to definitely keep your eye on there. So moving on to defensive end, one side Rashawn Gary, the other side Micah Parsons as it sits today. Kingsley Enagbare set to hit free agency. I like Enagbare as a player. To be a former, I think he was a 5th round pick. Man, you got great value out of that pick. You did. But this idea that he's better than Gary or that he should be starting alongside Micah Parsons, I'm not going to pay him $8 million. Just ain't going to do it, man. We're going to let him walk and get a comp pick. It is what it is. If you can get him back for less than 5, I think there could be value there. But again, it's such an important position like 3-tech, edge defender. You've got to make sure you've got the best of the best out there that you could possibly have on the field. Enagbare set to hit free agency. Then you got Lucas Van Ness. So now the question becomes, is it Lucas Van Ness's time to take over for Rashawn Gary? If that's the case, you need to cut Gary or he needs to take a huge pay cut, right? Now, if you're looking up going, you know, saying you, meaning we're the front office, if we're Goody and behind the scenes, we're going, LVN ain't the guy. I think he is. I think he is. He's getting better every year. And I think this is the year he could potentially blow up if he stays healthy and he gets his opportunities. But if they don't see him as that guy, how do you move on from Rashawn Gary if they don't have all the faith in Lucas Van Ness? Now, they're going to tell us they have faith in all of these guys, all the way down to Aaron Mosby, right? But the question is, do they truly believe what they're saying there, right? Brenton Cox Jr. is set to be, let me see what that is in the bold, a restricted free agent. So if the Packers want to bring him back, they can. We showed you how if you want to guarantee you get him back, you got to give him a $4.5 million contract, right? Now, is it worth it for that? That's the big question, right? Is it worth it to have him on the roster for 4.5? I personally think the answer is no. I know Jacob says it is, though. And I think there's a lot of fans, Jacob, that agree with you there. But when you look at the edge defensive position, how do you feel about the Packers roster?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be dictated on what we do with Gary, which I think is going to, Kingsley, like you said, I appreciate his service, what he's done. Battled through some injuries, showed some flashes himself of being kind of a pretty good pass rusher. Just the consistency wasn't always there. So, like you said, nowhere near $8 million is anywhere that I'd be willing to pay him. So you have to assume that he's gone. As far as what, like you said, are you willing to say that LVN can take over that basically full-time role that Gary has? If not, that's an issue there. I think Brenton Cox Jr. is for sure worth $4.5 million. How dare you? So I think we keep him around. Colin Oliver, and then I really do think we have something with Baron Sorrell. I think that he's going to maybe shine and show some people that he's not just a backup. So with those guys in the rotation, I feel pretty confident. If we end up having to lose Gary, I definitely want us to spend some draft capital on the edge room at some point. Probably earlier than later, obviously, if we want to have somebody that actually is going to try to, get into the rotation and have some meaningful snaps. All in all, though, I do feel pretty confident in that edge room. And then again, that's all based off if Micah comes back, he's healthy, he's ready to go.
And again, I seen the other day there was draft experts that were saying this is a very deep edge draft as well. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We're hearing edge and we're hearing cornerback early. What you're not hearing is defensive tackle. So all the more reason to probably get a little bit aggressive in free agency and try to grab one of these guys and try to shore up that position a little bit in case it doesn't work out. Now, our cheat sheet when it comes to D tackle, in this order, we got McDonald at 21, Caleb Banks at 23. He's rising on boards currently, according to Ground in the Mocks. Peter Woods is at 31, Kristen Miller 33, Lee Hunter 41. So theoretically speaking, those guys should be gone when we pick at 52. So now we would have to reach on Darrell Jackson at 91 or Dominic Orange at 99 with our 52nd pick. And I hate that idea. 82 or 84, I can stomach it. But the thought of reaching for one of those guys at 52, this is what happened last year, Jacob. We're looking at the board, and he goes and reaches on Anthony Belton. Like, that would be the equivalent to reaching on Darrell Jackson or Dominic Orange at 52. And if it happens, we're going to have to go, you're going to lose your mind on the live stream. And then I'm going to try to calm everybody down and go, maybe it'll work, guys. Maybe it'll work. And then we'll look up a year later and go, well, damn, it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like it seems like it happens every year. So I don't know. Anyway, you guys can tell probably in my voice, I try to be positive. I try to be positive on this show. To a fault. And you guys probably caught on that because I don't think people tune in to be depressed, right? But every year you'll notice in my voice, I'm going, it's hard for me to defend Goody. It's hard for me to defend Goody in this situation because there's GMs that are running laps around him. There are. And I agree with the Micah Parsons move. I completely agree with it. That's not the case, right? But it's these other little details where it's like, damn, couldn't we Aaron Banks? Like, what are we doing here? So anyway, moving on to the stack backer position. All right. Stack backer, what they're showing here for your nickel defense, Edgerrin Cooper, obviously Quay Walker is going to hit free agency. He'll probably get outbid. I think the Packers probably have a number of somewhere between, I don't know, $6 to $8 or maybe $9 million is kind of the number they got on him, average annual value. He's probably going to crack the 10 mark. Okay. So if that happens, your stack backers are going to be Edgerrin Cooper, and then alongside him, I would prefer Isaiah McDuffie over Tyron Hopper as it sits today. But Tyron Hopper, when he's given his opportunities, he's shown some flashes. Maybe he overtakes Isaiah McDuffie as that stack backer next to Edgerrin Cooper. But also, do you go in the draft and try to upgrade that position? Regardless, Jacob, if Quay Walker hits free agency and he is not back with the Packers, the question becomes, do you think Isaiah McDuffie or Tyron Hopper should be the starting inside linebacker, or do you need to go try to fill that void in free agency? Do you need to try to do something in the draft? And we've got several names here. One thing about linebacker in free agency, there's no shortage of big names you can go out there and get. Okay, some people are saying pay Quay Walker $15 million per, and I'm going, I'd rather pay Devin Lloyd $15 million per. Like that, Devin Lloyd or Devin Bush, they've had a lot more success. Or if Leo Chenal and his market value holds true, that Spot Track's got it at like $6.5 million. Go get Leo Chenal at the same price that you wanted Quay Walker. I think that's an upgrade over Quay. And I know people are going to think I'm crazy because Quay's a physical freak, but Leo Chenal played better football than Quay Walker, Jake.
I agree. Bring the Wisconsin boy home. You guys know how cheap I am. I would, if we're going to pay $15 million for Quay Walker, it just, to me, that doesn't make fiscal sense or logical sense. Not trying to crap on Quay, but we've seen him, what good are those athletic super freak traits if you're just going to use him standing around garden grass half the time? I would say that would be my preference too, is to bring in one seasoned vet. Leo Chenal would be perfect, just money-wise, fit-wise, scheme-wise. And then also I would address it in the draft. I wouldn't necessarily need to go early unless you had a situation where maybe a Rodriguez falls into your lap again. Then yeah, completely. Let's lock it down and not have to worry about the linebacker room for the next 3 to 5 years. And that'd be cool, definitely. But I do think that I'm comfortable, worst case scenario, even just having the Hopper, McDuffie, and Coop as our main three. I'm cool with that. I think the backups would definitely need to have, I don't trust Nick Nyman too much there. Christian Welch has been a peppered in guy here and there, but we definitely would need to have a little more of a floor.
Yeah. Holmes MD1 says, guys, he runs the defense. I think that is the most overblown thing on the face of the earth, Holmes, that he wears the green dot. Yeah. I do. And here's the thing. He runs the defense. How did that work out? Let's say what Holmes is saying here is, and assuming this is what he means, like the defense runs through Quay. He's the heart and soul of the defense. He's the guy that he runs the defense. He's the green dot. He's the Mike, so to speak. We know he doesn't always play Mike, but he's got the green dot. Okay. We gave up 25 points in the fourth quarter against the Bears in a playoff game. Don't you think it's time for a change? Like if that's the selling point, that, hey man, this is the dude. Now, maybe Holmes is looking at it from the lens of, no, I'm saying they won't get rid of him that easy because they see him as it runs through him. The problem still exists. Edgerrin Cooper left that game against Chicago, and everything fell apart. That told me, that was kind of, that sealed the deal for me with Quay, that, okay, that number that I put on him going, there's no way I'm paying him $10 million per, if it's me personally, that kind of sealed the deal for me. Because with the game on the line, with the season on the line, and Edgerrin Cooper going down and somebody needs to step up, he could not do it. He didn't do it. And that's where we got to be realistic as fans. We can't just, oh, no, he's a freak. I got you. He's a freak. But boy, when they ran that wheel route, I think it might have been Monunga, when they ran it was almost like a bench concept or a wheel. It's a flat to a wheel essentially. Quay seen it. He didn't hesitate. He shot his shot, and he wasn't athletic enough to get to the corner and stop the running back. And it's like, okay, we always say he's a physical freak. He's a physical freak. It wasn't enough in that situation, right? And we're going to pay this guy 11, 12, 13 million dollars. I don't know, man. Again, I would rather take that money and allocate it to bolstering the 3-tech position personally, So I feel like some people think that Rashawn Gary is the player that Quay actually is in terms of a level of player. Like I look at the way Quay is played and I go, man, he is really underperformed. He's got a ton of tackles. That's great and all. Where's he making those tackles? And his run defense got better this year, but his pass defense was, well, we looked it up one time. What was it? He was like 122nd in passer rating when targeted, or 86 in passer rating when targeted amongst all stack backers. And then you got somebody like Devin Lloyd, who people were saying is going to have about the same amount of contract demand in terms of AAV. And Devin Lloyd was like 3rd in the league in passer rating when targeted, right? So again, it's tough because you see all the potential in the world in Quay. And I think he is a great dude. I think he fits kind of what the Green Bay community is. They got in that as soon as he gets into town or in the off season, hey man, who's got a boat? Let's go fish. And it's like, man, I want that dude on my team. He's country as cornbread. He's a hard ass worker. He's a physical freak. But when you turn on the tape, you don't go, that dude's a difference maker. You just don't see it that way. And again, you're willing to overpay for great. You're not willing to overpay for good. So yeah, there you go. Perfect, Soder. Reminder that Blake Martinez had a ton of tackles too. Amen. It's a perfect example. And now he's ripping people off with Pokemon cards. Allegedly. All right. So moving on, Jacob. Cornerback. This is going to be a hot button topic. All these, man, we could talk for an hour on each position group, to be honest with you. Cornerback. Keyshawn Nixon. All right. Carrington Valentine. And then in the slot, you got Javon Bullard. Javon Bullard took a huge step in the slot. Really excited about Javon Bullard. Last year, Jacob was a perfect example of second-year jump. That's the player we thought we were drafting, right, in the second round. So I feel good about Bullard in the slot. Outside of that, with Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon, and, of course, Nate Hobbs behind them, potentially Nate Hobbs starting over Carrington Valentine. How do you feel about the cornerback room? Because for me, man, there's a lot to be desired there when it comes to the cornerback room. I think you got a lot of work to do. There's plenty of options. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys in free agency, including Trayvon Diggs, that I think would immediately step in and be cornerback 1, outside cornerback 1 on this team. So maybe it's time to do something different at cornerback because, again, Goody took a swing in free agency last year, said Nate Hobbs is our guy. It didn't work out. We'll see if year 2 is any better. How do you feel about the corners?
Yeah, now that we've done this exercise, I think that I'd have to go offensive line as the biggest need. I think that the cornerback room has surpassed the interior defensive line for me as far as being number 2. Just like you said, we don't know what's going to happen with Nixon necessarily. It seems like that they're flirting more towards with bringing him back than letting him go, which, you can think of that whatever you will. Carrington, I had high hopes for him, but he just absolutely let me down last year. Same thing with the Nate Hobbs. We paid the guy a ton of money. He started out so aggressive that we needed to basically tell him, like, dude, you can't hit your own players in practice kind of thing. After that, it seemed like he never really had that same intensity, aggressivity, if you will. I don't know, and I'm not sure if that was something that we got into his head or if he was just – if it was actually just the injuries, whatever the case may be, not worth the money, not a great signing in my opinion. And then after that, you got a lot of guys that are either UDFAs or haven't really had a lot of playing time. We had a little bright spot in the, little flash in the pan and Kamal Hadden, and then he has a horrible injury. It'd be lucky to see if he can even be running around at the beginning of the year come next year. So in my opinion, this has to be an area where we add a free agent and we address it in the draft. If we don't do both of those things, I think that it's almost criminal.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, man. When you look at the priorities in terms of, each individual position, offensive line 1, cornerback 2, I don't know if I would put defensive tackle 3. And that's wild because you guys know I have been preaching 3-tech, 3-tech, 3-tech forever, right? But if you can go out and get a defensive tackle to help bolster that room in free agency at a decent price, we've got 4 earmarked on our cheat sheet at D tackle. So that would suggest it's a little thin. The draft is thin as well. Again, if there's less supply and more demand, and in this case that holds true at defensive tackle, then you're going to have to overpay. The market's going to be up, right? The price is going to be up at defensive tackle. Offensive line, we've got a ton of prospects we like in the draft. We feel good about the prospects we could potentially draft, but also offensive line and free agency. We've got 2 centers and Tyler Linderbaum and Connor McGovern. And then we've got 6 guards that I really like as well. So there's plenty of stuff to work with there. You may just need to go overpay for D tackle because when we come back to cornerback as being one of the top needs or the second biggest need, as you just said, Jacob, you got plenty to choose from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 8 on the cheat sheet in free agency that I like at corner. And then at cornerback in the draft, it's real tricky because many times when we do our mock drafts, we're able to get a D'Angelo Pons or a Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson's screaming up boards now, so other people have caught on there for sure. But then you've got Igbinosun out of Ohio State in the 78 spot for us, Julian Neal at 80, Chandler Rivers at 81. In a perfect scenario, you go O-line with your second-round pick and then come back in the third, and hopefully one of those 3, Igbinosun, Julian Neal, or Chandler Rivers, is available for you to pick at 84. That would kind of help shore up that position. And also, if you go in free agency and you nab either one of these guards or one of these centers and you get a cornerback as well, whether it's Trayvon Diggs or you go a different route with, say, an Asante Samuel Jr. or Monteric Brown or who knows, maybe Jalen Watson's value isn't truly there. You feel good about drafting an offensive lineman, drafting a cornerback, but also signing an offensive lineman and signing a cornerback as well. So those are the 2 positions that no matter how many exercises we do on this show, no matter how many mock drafts we do, I keep coming back to we've got to focus on O-line and cornerback. And then after that, it definitely would be D tackle. And again, it's not to say that if Quay Walker isn't on the team, I feel great about McDuffie or Tyron Hopper playing alongside Edgerrin Cooper. But Goody spent a 3rd-round pick on Hopper. Is he just going to be a backup his entire career at 3rd round? Is that just we're just accepting that? Or are we going to give him an opportunity to actually go out there and earn that spot? And the reality is they're seeing the practice tape, right? So there's something they're seeing in practice that's not allowed them to propel him into that spot. And if the argument is, well, Quay Walker was here, they're not going to let him start over Quay. Quay was a 1st-round pick. That's a valid point. But when you bring in your 3rd stack backer in your base defense, that was always McDuffie. They never seen Hopper better than McDuffie. Now, was that a Jeff Hafley thing because of the BC connection? I don't know. Time will tell. But hopefully Hopper gets an opportunity. In a perfect scenario, what I would like to see is you don't have to go get a stack backer, and Tyron Hopper is the real freaking deal, and he's your new starter alongside of Edgerrin Cooper. I would love to see that happen. We just don't have ample evidence to suggest that is the right way to go. If that makes sense. So, again, cornerback, I think it is our second biggest need for sure. And safety, we shouldn't even talk about it, Jacob. We feel great about the safety room, right? I mean, you're talking about – and I want to say this. I like Nate Hobbs as our backup slot too. I think we got one of the best backup slot corners in Nate Hobbs in the league, right? That's what he does well. Unfortunately, we signed him and said, you're going to play outside, So, we got Emilio in here says, go get Red Murdoch. Hey, I'll tell you this. If Red Murdoch's there late in the draft, he is one of my draft crushes. It has nothing to do with Buffalo. That's the only thing I don't like about him, Jacob, is the fact that he played for Buffalo, We got to clip that for sure. All right. So safety position, obviously Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams are set. I like Katano Ladapo as a backup. I like Zane Anderson if you can bring him back. Of course, he is a restricted free agent. So if you put a minimum on there, you may lose him. I don't know if somebody will outbid you for Zane Anderson. They probably wouldn't. The problem with Zane is he hasn't stayed healthy. And, of course, they're showing Jonathan Baldwin outside of that, and we'll see what they do in the draft. There are quite a few safeties in this draft as well, although I don't have a cheat sheet created because I don't see it as a real need. Don't be surprised if they draft one if the board falls just right. So that is your breakdown of the defensive side of the ball. Anything else on it, Jacob? Any other comments before we move on there?
No, that's about it.
All right, cool. So there you go, guys. If you're watching this back later, let us know. How do you feel about the defensive depth chart? Do you agree with what we said? I think the big conversation is Quay Walker and Devontae White. Do you think those are the dudes that you want anchoring your defense moving forward, or is it time to find Wyatt's replacement, and is it time this year to move on from Quay Walker? Do you want to give him $10 million? How do y'all feel about that side of the ball? Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon for us as well. All right, Jacob, you ready to get into a little drama here, man? A little drama around Micah Parsons and our boy Skip Bayless. Ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right. So Skip Bayless, I want to ask the chat. Does anybody think this dude right here, does anybody take him serious at all? Like, how is this guy still relevant? How is he still in sports media? How does he still have a show? And anytime, I always got to say, and if you have to say something good about yourself, it's probably not true. You know, you meet those people like, oh yeah, man, I'm really good at this. You know, I'm not good at that, but boy, I'm great at this. It's like, if you have to pump yourself up or something, probably stretching the truth a little bit, right? He talks about his show's doing great, and I don't know how the numbers look, but he and Micah Parsons have gone back and forth for the longest time, right? And when he was with Dallas, that was a big thing, as these two guys always went back and forth. He didn't think Micah was worth it and this and that, at least down the stretch, right? But Micah had something to say on a podcast the other day. I'm trying to think of the name of the podcast here. I don't want to butcher it, but let me we'll pull it up here in a second. We'll go through and give the rage bait comments and everything in between. But here was Skip Bayless responding to Micah Parsons' comments. You're going to hear a little bit of Micah Parsons. You're going to hear a little bit of Skip Bayless, okay? And it's just going to be kind of a trailer here. It's 52 seconds long. There's going to be some beeped out words. So if you got kids in the room and you think they might be able to decipher and figure out what those words are, earmuff it, okay? But here we go. Here's the Micah Parsons and Skip Bayless drama in 52 seconds. We'll give all the details. I want to see what everybody thinks about this.
Skip Bayless. Got him.
Micah Parsons, I challenge you to meet me face to face on whatever venue you choose. We can do home and home. You can do my new show, Arena Gridiron, and I'll do your podcast. Arena Gridiron exploded through the NFL season, and we will continue to do it at least once a week through the off season. I'm going to say right to your face, this Twitter motherfucker, Twitter.
What, dude?
I'll say right to your face what I've always said about you, Micah Parsons. I'll tell you exactly what I've always said about you, face to face, eye to eye, man to man, Micah Parsons. You and I, let's do it. Let's go.
So, Jacob, our boy, the ratings must be down, right?
It gotta be.
Yeah. Does that not sound like I've got to go out here and try to get Micah on my show? All hands on deck. We got to make this happen because our show is completely tanking. Is that not what it feels like to you?
That reminded me of like daytime Jerry Springer style TV when you could just watch it and you're like, ugh, these poor people. They must really need that dollar. Yeah. That just, it reeks cringe, of, right? It's cringe, man. That's the definition of cringe right there.
Yeah. So, and it was on Funny Marco, I believe is what J. Cole said there. So just to give you kind of a little bit of background, we'll talk about the recent comments and then how far it goes back. Had AI put a report together. The long simmering feud between Skip Bayless and Micah Parsons has reached a boiling point following Parsons' high-profile trade to the Green Bay Packers and his subsequent appearance on the Open Thoughts podcast, I think might be what it's called, right, with Funny Marco. The latest flashpoint, quote, "I do it better." In a profane and viral interview released on February 17th, Parsons directly addressed Bayless's recent criticisms after being asked about his sports media figures who rage bait. Parsons went on a nuclear rant stating, quote, "F Skip Bayless. I don't give a F. You suck. Your show don't work no more. Come play my position, Skip, because I can do what you do. Poopy. I do it better sometimes." So, I think it's saying, crap, I do it better sometimes, talking about his podcast. You got somebody like Skip Bayless who's built his whole professional life trying to be great at what he does. You got somebody like Micah Parsons goes on, does a podcast, and it's just as successful, right? Parsons accused Bayless and other national commentators, I should say, of being, quote, puppets for ratings and claimed they lack the courage to say their criticisms to his face, referring to them as, quote, Twitter finger MF personalities. So that's why he said that, obviously, in his rebuttal. So the timeline of the feud, the no-show, all right? So this started in 2022. The tension reportedly began when Parsons was scheduled to be a weekly guest on Undisputed, but failed to appear for his debut Bayless reportedly took this as a personal and professional slight. So the whole reason this feud started, Jacob, was in 2022, Mike Parsons didn't want to go on his show. And this is what I'm talking about, this narcissism of some of the folks in the sports media, especially these shock jock rage baiters. They think they're entitled to, well, these players need to tell me what they think. They need to speak to me, right? Who do they think they are? I'm more important than them. So the Packers trade obviously happened in 2025 after a protracted contract standoff with the Dallas Cowboys. Parsons was traded to the Packers for Kenny Clark, 2 first-round picks. Bayless reacted on X with a blunt, good riddance, calling the star linebacker Micah headache. So now we know where all this surfaced from, because he refused to go on his podcast. Could you imagine me, guys, inviting Isaiah McDuffie on my show, right? And him no-showing or saying, no, I can't do it. And then me all of a sudden attacking him every week because he didn't come on my show. I'll be honest with you. We don't have guests on the show. You know why? Because when we have guests, you don't want to put them in an awkward spot. You don't want to try to hammer them down for something and get them to say something they otherwise shouldn't. So everything with interviews is just fluff. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense, Jacob? Like, what's the point in having a player on the show when we're not going to get any extra information that we might want? It's just, okay, hey, man, you're a great player. You're doing good, man. What do you think about the future? Is he going to say something bad about his teammates? Is he going to say something bad about the team? So what's the point? It's like these shows that they scratch and they claw to get Brian Gutekunst on their show. I never watch those because he's not going to say anything. What's he going to say? Let me tell you, hey, guys, listen. Let me tell you what we're really going to do with this. Not going to happen. So I would rather us as fans get in here and just talk ball than go that route and just waste 20, 30, 40 minutes in an interview where everybody comes away going, hell, he didn't say anything. So anyway, loser intangibles, all right? In September of 25, Bayless escalated the rhetoric by claiming the Cowboys were better off without Parsons, labeling him a player with loser intangibles and accusing him of being a liability in run defense during big games. Guys, we seen Jeff Hafley line up Micah Parsons in a 3-tech, and he beat a double team on a 4th down run stop. That is the biggest bunch of BS that Micah Parsons is a bad run defender. Is it what he does the best? No. But what he does the best is elite at rushing the passer, right? But he is still a great run defender. So that's BS. Again, he's mad because he wouldn't come on his show. And then the childlike label in 2025. During the 2025 preseason, Bayless blasted Parsons for refusing to wear a jersey while on the sidelines, calling his behavior childlike and unprofessional. Obviously, that was him wanting out of the Dallas Cowboys situation. And Jacob, I'm going to get your take. I love looking back on this stuff because, hey, sooner or later, everybody's got to put up or shut up. If you're the player complaining, you got to put up or shut up. If you're the media member, we're going to find out were you right or wrong there. What happened to Green Bay's defense with Micah Parsons? He had the highest pressure rate, if I remember correctly, of anybody, any pass rusher in the league, right? Any defensive player in the league, highest pressure rate. And then on top of that, what happened to Dallas's defense? They were dead last in defense last year. So what's your take on this, man? I know you're a big Skip Bayless fan, so try to defend your boy here.
Yeah, love the guy. Absolutely love him. It's just one of those things where, again, it just smells of desperation. You got one of the guys that's in his absolute prime. You got one of the guys that's clawing and scratching just to stay relevant. And it is just kind of sad. And to the point, I'm almost surprised that Mike even gave him the time of day, because he's got to realize that dude's, his whole brand is a sinking ship, and he is just trying to just throw out hooks anywhere he can sink into somebody and just kind of drag along with him for the last few moments of his career. And it's just a little bit sad. It's kind of just, very cringe inducing. But that being said, it will be fun. And plus, the whole Cowboy fan shtick is just so hilarious. Like it's went from being one of the most storied franchises where it was like, everybody respected that star on the helmet. Everybody, it was America's team, really was America's team. I just think now it's such a joke, man. Everything about it, from the old crazy guy that's running the show to the success on the field, to the fan base that's tried to sit there and for guys like Skip to have to kind of exemplify what it is to be a Cowboy fan nowadays. It's like, just the whiniest bunch of losers.
Yeah, so true. Let's go to the chat real quick. Michael Jones says that clown's looking for ratings with laughing emojis. It's what it's all about for sure. Such a cake. Skip does kind of look like Jerry Springer. Jacob, you grew up with some Jerry Springer. Don't his show feel like the sports version of Jerry Springer?
Yeah, it does.
No, I mean it's like every time that he tries to make himself relevant, it's some kind of shock jock mentality, that approach. Mike Z in the chat, that was top tier cringe content. Holy cow, it was cringy. What's even cringier is when he poses. You know how he poses with those with his Jordans on and try to get sideways and try to flex his biceps, and it's like,
stop.
You're 112 years old.
Dude,
like,
you're a tiny little man. Get out of here.
Bro, I'm 43 and I wear oversized hoodies and stuff because I don't want to come across like that. Yeah, this dude's running around in skinny jeans, Jordans, and trying to flex with a Schmedium t-shirt on. Like, what are we doing, dude? What are we doing? When you look like this, probably don't need to be out there trying to flex, my man. Just don't need to be doing okay. Holmes MD1, Skip never got over getting buttholed by the Packers in the playoffs. Damn, Holmes coming in hot today. J. Cole says, I don't think Skip's parents were big fans of his. I'm not even at home. Reggie in the chat, good to see you, buddy. He says, it's given desperation from Skip. His ratings must need help. And again, man, how many shows has he just ran into the tank, right? Like, you seen what happened with Shannon Sharp, and then don't get me wrong, Shannon Sharp had his own problems off to the side too, obviously. Yeah. But just wild. And then Eric Sutherland says, under that beard, Jacob is Skip. So there you go. I can see it.
How dare you?
How dare you, sir? All right, so there you go, guys. There's the drama between Skip and Micah. Let us know in the comments, how do you feel about that situation? I don't think Micah's out of line. I love that Micah calls everybody on their crap. And again, would he say it to Micah's face? He would, hoping that Micah would just lay a finger on him so he can sue the crap out of him. If I'm Micah, and as a Packer fan, my advice to Micah is, listen, sir, don't even give him a time of day. Don't go nowhere near that dude. He is trying to bait you because his career is completely tanking. That's what's happening. But let us know in the comments, what do you think? Hit like for us, hit subscribe, click the bell icon as well. So there you go, Jacob. We got our drama in for the day, man. Nothing like a little off-season drama, right?
Gotta have a little tea. Man.
By the way, you having tea this morning?
I've been enjoying tea multiple times a day, Clayton. Yeah.
And the legal kind, right? Legal tea.
It is legal. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I just want to throw that out there. I know the chat immediately goes to, what's in that teacup there, Jake? They immediately think that. So with that being said, I'm going to just check real quick. Is there anything else you want to hit before we wrap up? I'm going to comb through Packers news and just make sure we're not missing anything at all.
No, I'm good to go, man. Are you planning on doing an evening show at all, or are you still playing that by ear?
We probably will do an evening show. If I had to guess, I'd say 5 p.m. Central, something like that. And if any news breaks, we'll definitely go live. The other night, after we wrapped up, we had the Rich Bisaccia news break. So Emilio was still in here. We were chatting while I was uploading the audio to the podcast and everything. And I was like, let's go live. Rich Bisaccia just stepped down. So if any kind of news breaks, we'll go live throughout the day. But we probably will get together for an evening show as well. Just trying to look here. Wendell Ferreira dropped an article 14 minutes ago. You guys want to go check over A to Z Sports. Packers' full potential in 2026 hinges on a major leap from these 5 ascending players. So go check that out. Seeing if anything else. Oh, here we go. Ian Rappaport 52 minutes ago. You ready for this, Jacob? As Indiana moves closer to being the next home for the Bears, Illinois cancels a meeting this morning in the House where a project bill involving the Bears was to be discussed. So they may end up in Indiana. Wow. The Bears are such a garbage organization, they can't even keep their team in state. Think about that, man. It's wild. Absolutely wild. Any other thing? I think we're good. Bill Huber put an article up about an hour ago. You guys want to go check out. Here's one candidate as the Packers work to replace Rich Bisaccia. And it looks like, if I'm looking at the logo correctly, it might be somebody within the New England Patriots organization. So go check that out at Bill Huber NFL over on X. He writes, obviously, for SportsIllustrated.com. So that's it, guys. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the chat. Want to give a special shout out and thanks to our boy Mike Z with the super chat. Thank you so much for the support, guys. And as always, the best way to support what we do here at PTA is just join our Patreon community, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. I didn't realize how much that group had grown. And I went through and looked at the analytics and was like, holy cow, man, we got a bunch of members in here now. You get the regulars commenting, and we got the chats and everything set up so you guys can communicate in there. share your mock drafts, all that stuff. You get access to our draft board link, our cheat sheets, all that stuff is written in there as well. We got prospect profiles, scouting reports on these prospects as we get closer to the draft. So anytime any kind of news breaks, I try to throw it in there first. So you guys make sure you check us out over at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Eric Sutherland says it's rigged. We didn't even do a giveaway, Eric. Golly, Bob. I want to bring the giveaways back so bad, but we were told that's not a good idea on YouTube. So it is what it is. So maybe we could do something in the Patreon group or something here real soon. But anyway, appreciate everybody. Jacob, thank you for your time, man.
Yes, sir. Go Pack,
All
go.
right. We will see you guys later this afternoon as news breaks. My name's Clayton. That's Jacob. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
There we go.
We're out. Bye, guys.